Are you familiar with Spider-Man? Do you remember his story about he was bitten by a radioactive spider and began to display superhuman abilities? Well, when I was little, I was a fan of these comics and movies, and even dreamed about the same thing happening to me. I'll tell you a secret. I even purposefully caught spiders, but only those that I found at my house, and put them on my arms to see that they'd bite me. It was terribly painful and unpleasant, but I stayed the same person until one day, a funny story happened to me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Chuck. My family and I live in North Carolina, USA. My brother and I were born and raised here. We have a wonderful tradition in our family. We travel somewhere once a year. Last year, our choice fell onto Mexico. My mother wanted to see the famous Gulf of Mexico with her own eyes, to visit museums and restaurants. So, we've decided on it. We planned the whole trip and rushed there in a great mood. Upon arrival, we had wonderful weather and smooth sand of the Pacific coast under our feet. It was amazing. We spent all of our days with a guide. We would go to so many places and got really tired of outdoor activities. And I decided to spend a day at the hotel. My parents and my brother went on another tour. I said that I would join them in the evening. I slept most of the day. Then, in the late afternoon, I got ready for dinner with my parents. I dressed up, took a taxi, and we drove off. Oh, I could have remembered that day as relaxing, pleasant memory, but the taxi driver, who did not understand a damn word of English, took me somewhere in the direction of some random water bodies. I explained for a long time that he had brought me to the wrong place, but he seemed to think that I wanted to trick him and not pay. The angry Mexican took a bat out of the car and probably started threatening me with it. His bushy eyebrows and angry-looking mustache spoke for itself. I threw money in his face and ran away. And the further I ran, the darker it became outside. I prayed only about one thing, not to run into wild animals. Me being extremely anxious, my stomach started hurting and, well, I really needed to use a restroom. That's just what I needed. I quickly looked for a way out and was already covered with a cold sweat. But then I realized that I would not be able to get to the toilet in time. As soon as possible, I found a big bush and sat down. While I was doing my business, I looked for something to make a sheet out of, noticed a big leaf, and tore it off. Quickly used it and saw that something was moving. "A snake!" I yelled and fell back. This reptile was slowly crawling in my direction, simultaneously sticking out its double tongue. I started to panic. There were no sticks or stones nearby. I knew that if I ran, it would certainly jump and bite, so I took careful steps back, and then stepped on in a place where I did my business. I screamed aloud, "Damn it!" and the snake jumped in my direction. I yelled like a madman, wanted to go to the toilet again, but a second, 2, 3 seconds passed, the snake was gone. I took my hands off my face and saw a possum fighting with the snake. Wow, the wrestle was tough. The snake bit it several times, but I saw that he continued to fight. By the way, opossums have a special poison neutralizer. Shortly speaking, they fought, and I, at that time, found a suitable stick and hit the snake right on its head. It passed out or probably died. I don't know for sure. Barely catching our breath, the possum and I looked at each other. "Life for a life, brother," I told it and held out my hand. This cute little animal looked in my direction with big eyes and seemed to understand that I had saved his life. He came closer and closer and suddenly bit my finger. I did not expect such betrayal. I yelled again. My stomach twisted. The possum ran away. I again began to look for a place to get down to do business, but in a more open area. And after I walked a few meters, my head started spinning and I fell. I don't know how long it took before I got up, but my head ached terribly. I suddenly felt a strong smell of feces. No, not mine, as if not human. Then I noticed my vision had improved significantly. I don't know how, but focusing on my smell and sight, I left that unfamiliar place and quickly got to the restaurant myself. Just imagine that. I was a little dirty, so immediately ran into the toilet, washed myself, cleaned my t-shirt. There, I looked in the mirror and saw all my face wrinkles. A spinach piece from lunch stuck in my teeth. I saw a pulse beating on my neck. Smelled perfume from a man who came out of the bathroom. All this seemed very strange to me. I found my family, sat down at the table, ordered food. I was not particularly talkative. My mother talked excitedly about their day, and all I did was sniff food from the plates. then called the waiter and said that they had added stale carrots to the dish. We argued with the restaurant administrator for a long time. Then they brought us wine as an apology. My parents stared at me with questions, but I just said I didn't feel well. For most of the evening, I pretended to listen to stories, but in fact, I listened only to my own feelings. After dinner, we headed to the hotel. It was already deep into the night, but I did not want to sleep at all. I wanted to go outside and take a walk in the courtyard of the hotel. I just wondered, looking at field mice in the grass. Midges flew past, and I could make out their wings and legs on the fly. All this seemed very strange to me. Then I suddenly remembered that I'd been bitten by a possum. Am I really a possum now? I asked myself, and began to read facts about the animal from the internet. All signs were the same. My vision and sense of smell improved by hundreds, and I began to clearly react to sounds, to distinguish them. But there was something else that would finally prove the fact that I was now superhuman. It was written on the internet that possums can neutralize the poison of snakes because they feed on them, and when the animal is in danger, it falls dead. Its eyes turn glass, and their body gives off an unpleasant odor that scares off the enemy. Ha! You could say that I was already a possum in my normal life. I laughed to myself. There was a little fear, surprise, and even panic in me, because I'd only seen this in sci-fi films before, but since I got lucky with it, I will consider myself the chosen one. After all, I could somehow use new skills and not tell anyone about it. I needed to come up with pros for myself, and I surfed the internet all night long. When my family and I returned after the vacation, I found an ad for a job, a vacancy at a grocery production company. They needed a person with an excellent senses to distinguish the smells of products. Then I found another job in the field of perfume production. They paid very good money there. I was taken there almost immediately, and on the first day, I showed myself to be the best worker. I decided to use the abilities to my advantage and was happy. I was not a superhero, of course, but that was fine too. Thanks to my ability to see well and my quick reaction, I managed to save little kids twice from getting hit by a car. And this, in its own way, was also heroism. I was happy. I could not wait for my beloved girlfriend to return from her grandmother. On the day she returned, the first thing I did was to come to Lucy with gifts. We'd been together for not too long, about a month, so we were having such a romantic period. I brought her an amulet around her neck from Mexico. It was made of snakeskin. It looked real. Lucy immediately said that we spend time together, so we went to the cinema, then to a cafe. After a busy evening, she offered to walk home. I agreed. I also wanted to take time to cuddle more. When we walked a couple of blocks, I noticed a crowd of people in the alley. They looked at us and I immediately felt that something was wrong. My muscles tensed, as did my sight and smell. There was no other way. We had to go past them. I tried to wait for them to leave, but they were waiting for us. That much was obvious. Trouble was inevitable. I took Lucy's hand tighter and quickened my pace. When we passed them, one freak slapped my girlfriend's butt. She of course reacted to this, and anger boiled in me. I ran onto him and bit him. I don't know why, but I really wanted it. His friends pounced on me. There were about 5 people in total. Lucy screamed, cried, begged me to let go, but they twisted my arms and threw me on the ground. Apparently, the most important of them took out a knife and put it to my throat. He said that I would regret it, and at that moment, I felt my stomach twist treacherously, and then I seemed to fall, but I don't remember exactly. Lucy brought me back to consciousness. She was sitting on the pavement, crying and holding my face. These idiots were gone. I asked what happened, and she said at the moment when the guy swung the knife, I began to shake. My eyes rolled back, foam came out of my mouth and I fell down, and then farted very loudly. She told this and did not even laugh. Imagine what a shameful experience I had. It seemed to me that only I could screw this up. Those assholes ran away when they saw the foam. They probably thought I was sick. I quickly got up from the ground. I was still so embarrassed in front of my girlfriend. I quickly walked her home and took a taxi to my place, and went online and began to read how to get rid of such a superpower. I wouldn't survive another shameful experience like that. The information I found was useless because nowhere were the lucky ones like me, so I went to my friend Cyrus. His parents were doctors. Maybe they could help me in some way. And after hearing my story, he laughed for 2 hours. When I got tired of him, I hit him in the back of the head. He began to mimic me and called me fart man or gas man and so on. I saw a pimple on his head and pressed it with all my might. He yelled in the whole room and said that he would stop. Cyrus found a bunch of encyclopedias, but there was not much information anywhere, so he suggested waiting for his parents. They had a type of doctor's room in their house, where they sometimes treated neighbors and relatives. Out of curiosity, I went down there and began to peer at the instruments. At the end of the room, I saw what looked like an embryo in a jar. It looked like it was alive. All my attention was turned to it. Suddenly, I heard from behind me, "What are you doing here?" It was Cyrus's father. He scared me and I passed out again. After a while, I regained consciousness and saw that Cyrus's parents were sitting above me. He himself stood on the side and laughed. I realized I farted. They helped me up and I told my story. Generally speaking, they could not help me with anything, but other specialists helped. It turns out that after the possum bit the snake, and then me, the poison of the snake got into my blood. Apparently, this poison acted as a hallucinogen, and it seemed to me that my senses were heightened. As for work, it was all my crazy fake beliefs too. My parents said that after the trip, I slept 2 days in a row. Attacks in the form of loss of consciousness and due to stress are also associated with snake poison. Well, my fart attacks and going to the toilet were also a feature, only one given to me by nature. I was advised to treat my stomach. Here's the story, friends. So, in the future, be careful and do not touch any wild animals. If you liked the story, then press the like button and leave us some comments.